Hey guys, what's up? Remember, if you like these kind of videos, like, sub, silly comment, share the videos. It helps the channel. I appreciate it. Thanks. Um, so I made a video talking about this a couple years ago, but what's old is new again, and some people like hearing this story, and I feel like it always gets brought up every now during live streams. What about what happened at EVO 2K3 with having people play on projector screens back during the dark ages of video game tournaments, when people were, of course, and people they should be anal, right? Because you should be wanting to play a game without lag, but people are very anal nowadays, of course, with playing on a correct setup with no lag. But back in the day, they actually, a world tournament, they actually had people randomly playing on a movie theater projector screen and tried to say it wouldn't lag. So what is the story of Evolution 2003, right? So leading up to Evolution 2003, there was going to be a big East Coast versus West Coast tournament for Guilty Gear as well, right? Because there was like drama and tension in the community, right? And they had made me actually the leader of Team East Coast. And the story about all of this, what happened was, there's always this coast is better than this coast, right? There's always East Coast versus West Coast. And even though I wasn't an East Coast guy, I had been, up to that point, been the main person winning all the tournaments, in America, in the Midwest and East Coast while I was traveling around, right? And, I guess it kind of sounds like I'm tooting my own horn, but you got to remember 2003 is actually the first year I even went on disability, right? So I was sick at this time too, and I had been winning a lot of tournaments up to this, and so they'd made me the captain of this Team East Coast. And one of the reasons too they're having drama, they wanted an East Coast versus West Coast for Guilty Gear, is back in the day, I think it was called Super Battle Opera is what they used to have in Japan. And what the California guys did is they did this shady thing, and they basically gave, I don't remember, it couldn't have even been 2 weeks. It was like maybe a week's notice. They're like, hey, Japan is giving America a spot. You either come to this California tournament this weekend or you don't get to try out. And of course, the rest of America was really pissed, right? Because basically then no one could just fly within just a few days to go to California to try out for this tournament to try to make it to Japan, right? So what had happened then, so then of course they just sent some Cali guys, whatever it was. And eventually though, months after that, some California guys actually did, who were at that tournament, did come to, Midwest tournaments. And they were tournaments that I won, including that infamous, maybe crack prawn bracket, if you want to call it, where I would like to believe that he didn't do it on purpose, but, maybe he fucking did, right? Where it was a huge tournament. There was hundreds of people there, right? And this isn't saying that all 100 people were good, not whatsoever, but, it was a big 100-man tournament. There was a ton of people there, dude. And for some reason, the story was he only had to win a couple of matches to get to the finals of this tournament. And, we saw this bracket and we're like, dude, why does he only have to win a couple of matches? And they were trying to say, oh, well, and the tournament organizers were saying like, oh, well, he said because he's from California, he gets to do that, whatever the story was. And we're like, what the fuck are you talking about, right? And so when we went to him, we're like, dude, did you say this? He's like, oh, no, I didn't say that. And so it was a clusterfuck. Who knows what really happened? It was so long ago, but it is what it is, right? So anyway, what happened is, though, he got destroyed, and it was a tournament that I won, right, really badly. And so that also added drama to it as well. Like, California's EVO, they actually came to a tournament, on our side of America. That was actually Chicago at the time, but whatever the case, they're like, you know what I mean? Like California's EVO, they had the qualifiers for the Japan tournament. They didn't warn anybody. And then when they actually had California people, whenever they travel anywhere else, they lose. Clayton is beating all these people, blah, blah, blah. So there was drama involved, and they wanted to have a East Coast versus West Coast thing. Like, who is the best in America, right? And so they had made me the team captain of the East Coast team, right? Even though, again, I'm not East Coast, but I had been winning the tournament. So they kind of made me the captain, even though I didn't want to be, right? So what happened is we had our 4 members picked for the team, and we didn't have the 5th member picked. And what happened is, so we were flying to California, and to add to the story, what happened was we didn't have the fifth member picked because we couldn't decide who should be the last place. And at the time, there was a guy named Roger who was a rich kid. He was actually my age. We were both, me, him, and Kevin were probably the youngest people around this time, right? Because I was younger than the other guys as well. But Roger was a rich kid. His family owned, they owned some hair company, famous hair company in America. I forget exactly what it is, but so Roger's family paid for everyone in that Team Serious sort of group, clique, whatever it might be, besides me, because I didn't want anyone to pay for my own trip or hotel or anything like that, because it's not really me. I don't think you should have to do that just because you're rich, right? So basically, Roger's mom, family, whatever it was, they paid for everyone's trip and their hotel room to California for EVO, besides me. I don't know how many people there were. There was probably, let's say 10, 12 people, however many it was. It was a lot of people, right? And, oh man, there was so much drama that weekend, dude. So we had got to California and we decided, we'll decide who is going to be the last spot for this Team East Coast there, right? And we decided we're going to have it's going to be between a few members. It was going to be between, I think it was actually like Roger, Elvin Shadow, and God, maybe there was a couple of other people. Because at the time, Elvin Shadow had just started becoming known as a guy that was winning tournaments, like a top player, right? He wasn't in the thick of the level of some of these other guys. He was just becoming known as more of a top player in America at the time. So that's why you're asking why he didn't have an automatic spot at the time. That's why. But so anyway, basically we were talking like who's going to be the last spot, and no one could decide what they wanted to do. So, you know, and some people were brought up, like people who we'll talk about, like people like Josh, the Funk Doc, was brought up and everything like that. And that dude, he thinks that I've had it out for him. And, you know, I can just name him by his name now because it's so fucking ridiculous. Like, basically, it's like, well, should Josh the Funk Dog get a chance to be in this tournament? And I was like, I had just double perfected Josh, like literally at a tournament recently. And I basically just said, I think anyone that I can double perfect at a tournament isn't good enough to be on the team. And everyone agreed with me. It was done, right? And so we went over other people, like I said, Roger. At some point, people were even saying that Roger should automatically get the spot because Roger had paid for everyone's ticket. And I'm like, dude, you can't give Roger a spot just because he paid for everyone's ticket. That's like fucking scamming people. That's like bribery almost. You know what I mean? Like, it just, everyone was so fucking, people are not on the up and up, right? And so basically the only one with balls was me. I'm like, you know what, dude, let's just get these few people that we all think should be in it, have them play a round robin for it. They get the spot, right? So like I said, it was Elvin Shadow, I think it was Roger, maybe 2 other guys. I don't fucking remember anymore. Anyway, so we're trying to run this tournament, mini tournament, right when we get to California before this thing starts. All of a sudden, Josh the Funk Doc comes with his parents, no joke, and he opens up the hotel room, and he's like basically crying, dude. It was like, you guys are having a tournament, like for the final spot? Well, I want to enter the tournament too. And he's there with his parents crying, dude. And I'm like, well, we already started, and these were the people that were decided to be in the tournament. You weren't in it. And then it might have literally been Kenji, you know, because Kenji's always trying to suck somebody's dick, you know, just not saying he's a bad guy, but he's a two-faced dude, right? He's like, yeah, man, let Josh in the tournament. And I think I turned back to Kenji. I'm like, dude, that wasn't the fucking rule. And I was like, dude, you know what? If you guys are going back on what you said right now, you got to let everyone in this fucking tournament because that is not fair. That is what we discussed, right? And people are like, okay, Clayton, but if you're going to do that, we're not going to sit around with you to run this tournament. You got to run it by yourself. And I was like, okay, motherfuckers, I'm going to run this tournament by myself. Because you guys can't fucking stick up for what you said because you know you said he shouldn't be in it. And I remember, this is funny because Josh thought that I had it out for him that weekend. And again, I don't know if he watches my fucking YouTube, but people got to remember, Josh was a fucking laughing stock of Team Serious. People used to bag on this dude all the time. I didn't bag on him. Now, did I ever laugh at the jokes they made about him? I'm not saying I'm not above that. I did laugh at some of the jokes they made about him, right? But people were constantly bagging on this dude and shit talking him, right? It just is what it is, right? And it's funny because years after this had happened, Josh had like messaged me and he told me that he forgave me for what I did to him at EVO. And it's like, this dude really has no idea that all those years other people were making fun of him. It wasn't me. And the funny thing is, if you even go back and look at some of the videos where Marcel has messaged me, Kenji actually basically scammed Josh out of money then years later. So it just goes to show you the delusion really of the fighting game community, that this dude, he really thinks it was me that purposely did something to him at EVO. And even after he got scammed out of shit by people like Kenji, he still thought it was me. Like, what the fuck, dude? Fucking real insanity hours of the fighting game community. But anyway, so we have to have this round robin. No one else will run it besides me. So everyone else basically gets to go out and have fun besides me. I don't get to practice. I have to run this fucking bullshit thing, right? So anyway, it's going real late because, again, I said anyone that's here gets to be in it now because this is bullshit. So it becomes a real big clusterfuck. And eventually they're about to have this East Coast, West Coast thing. And I'm like, well, fuck, guys, we got to finish these last few matches at the venue because they're about to start the East Coast, West Coast thing, right? So we get to the venue where they're having the East Coast, West Coast thing. Drew Kono isn't even there yet. I mean, because he literally had missed his flight. So he was supposed to be there earlier in the day in California. And he was going to be getting there right before the tournament started as well. So we're finishing these few matches, and I remember at some point Flo comes up to me, and Flo's like, why didn't you ask me to be in the tournament? And I'm like, dude, he looks at me, and Flo has never liked me, I guess because I beat him in every tournament I've played him at or something. I don't know. This isn't me trying to talk shit about Flo, but it's what happened. I don't have anything against him per se, but I think this dude has always thought that I haven't liked him or something. But so I think he gets a chip on his shoulder because he thinks that I purposely left him out of the tournament. I'm like, dude, I'm not even supposed to be fucking running this thing right now. It was just supposed to be these three people, and he was not happy with me. Anyway, so, lo and behold, though, for what it's worth, Josh actually fucking won the tournament. I can't fucking believe it. He beat Elvin Shadow and all these guys, so he got the 5th place, right? Anyway, so I start to look around, and I think I'm looking for Tragic or something. I'm like, okay, we got our fucking team. Are we going to be doing this, East Coast versus West Coast thing? He's like, yeah, it's going to be right here. And I'm like, dude, where's the TV? Where's the console? And he's like, oh, no, we're not doing it on that. We're playing it on a projector screen. And I'm like, what do you mean you're playing it on a projector screen? He's like, yeah, we're playing on a projector screen so everyone can see. And I'm like, but like the lag, dude, like is there something we can play on this and then it projects it or something? Like, I mean, we literally are playing against a movie theater thing on a wall. That's gonna lag. And they're like, well, you know what? Either you play or you don't. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And I'm like, this is gonna fucking lag. And we got destroyed. And of course, especially because I haven't gotten to play the whole weekend because of these motherfuckers doing this bullshit. I didn't get to practice that day, well, the first day we got to California or anything, because I had to run their fucking stupid tournament like this. And so, yeah, we got fucking destroyed. And I was so salty because then once we played on a TV, then I beat them after that, these guys. I was like, oh my God, are you fucking kidding me, dude? So we didn't play that. I think I played some guys a few matches. It wasn't like a long set or anything like that, but I played some of the guys after just on the TV, and I'm like, oh, you got to be fucking kidding me, right? And so I'm so pissed, right? And some other stuff I haven't even mentioned about this EVO, what a fucking clusterfuck it was, dude, is when we had gotten to California, I said Roger was rich. Brian, one of the guys from Pittsburgh, so, man, this is ridiculous, right? So Brian, one of the guys from Pittsburgh, we got there and there was like some Soul Calibur people there. And I don't remember how many fucking people were there. Maybe it was like 4 or 5. I don't think it was 10, but it was a good number, right? And they were just there waiting at the hotel for us. And they're like, hey, yeah, you got a room for us, right? And, we're just like, what? And, Brian came over to Roger and he was just something ridiculous. Like, well, we thought, Roger, you have money, so you can just house these guys too. We didn't tell you. And like, there's no room. And Roger pulls out, I remember he said, he's like, oh, well, my parents gave me a $40,000 credit card for my birthday. Don't worry. And it was like a $40,000 credit card for your birthday. He's like, yeah, I'll just get him a room. And I'm like, wow, your family just fucking paid for all these people's plane tickets. And now even the people that you don't know are so fucking selfish. They're just randomly showing up to the hotel because you're the rich kid and you're going to pay for their hotel too. And then guys like Jake and Ami, and you know, like I said, these guys still fucking play. You know, like Jake is still, like I said, these guys all still, it's crazy to me. Like all these guys from back then, they still fucking play, dude, right? Jake and Ami come up to Roger and they're like, oh yeah, we didn't bring any money for food. And Roger's pulling out all this money. So now Roger has to pay for their food because they didn't bring any money to eat either. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You don't fucking owe these guys anything. And he's like, no, it's okay. I can do it. And I remember that entire weekend, dude. Like Roger literally, dude, at some point he started crying to me, dude. And it's crazy too, because if you look at Roger actually is kind of like me, that we were kind of the same age, but Roger kind of looked older actually. So, you know, Roger was my age, right? But he looked like he could have been 21, whatever, how old, right? You know what I mean? Because he had a little bit of stubble and everything, if you guys remember Roger. And man, Roger was crying to me at some point about how everyone was just using him and how he couldn't go to church because, if you guys remember, or maybe you don't if no one's listening to this story that was alive back then, or maybe you were alive but you weren't there. Roger was super religious, so he thought God was going to be mad at him that he was not at church this weekend, and he was doing all these things for other people and people were using him. And it's just like, oh my God, what a clusterfuck. So I was trying to help Roger the entire weekend, being his like fucking emotional support because he wouldn't stick up for himself. And I was like, oh my God, dude. Ah, Jesus Christ. So anyway, you know, EVO eventually happened, and like I said, you know, there was no consistent setup, and I've showed the message, like 1 minute you're playing on this, 1 minute you're playing on a projector screen, and of course they wanted me to play on a projector screen, of course, you know, because Clayton's winning all these tournaments. These motherfuckers knew that I was more advanced than them, you know what I mean, especially at the time. It was ridiculous. So no consistent setup. I never got to fucking practice the entire weekend because I got caught running around helping Roger, trying to literally emotionally support him. Couldn't fucking practice because people didn't have the fucking balls to stick up for themselves. Then you have to randomly play on projector screens throughout the tournament. So anyway, you know what I mean? And you, like I said, I don't know how anyone could actually even look at those matches and not tell that there was no consistent setup, because it's like, dude, I could not even hit Kai's forward hard slash as a media attack. That's how consistent the setups were with us. You know, so I was like, how fucking ridiculous. What a terrible taste in my mouth, right? Like I said, I feel like I have almost all bad stories from video games, but, and even worse, I remember, I think, you know, Ruin beat me at some point, and then after that, you know, when we went to actually just sit down, just play at a regular TV, I beat him every fucking time I played him. And, you know, he even joked, he's like, I'm glad you didn't play like that during the tournament. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you are. You know what I mean? It was just like, dude, you know, it's just like, I was such a salty taste on my mouth. And I mean, I don't really have anything good to say about it. And of course, you know, after the tournament, they tried to make me out to be a liar. Like, oh, Clayton, he's a sore loser. You know, he was winning all these tournaments, but it just proves, you know, he's not as good as California. He made up a mistake. He made up an excuse trying to say like, oh, the game lags on a projector screen. What a ridiculous excuse. Which, of course, nowadays, Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? Which it should be. You know, you play on a fucking monitor that is like even a slight frame off, and people say it's not fair, right? But literally having me play on projector screens, they tried to say I lied about. And, you know, I've showed the messages, you know, later on, people have admitted it did happen, but they're just, you know, they come up with that excuse that, well, we both had to play on it. So it's not like it was only Clayton who had to deal with it. And it's like, dude, yeah, okay. But you motherfuckers sure made me out to be a liar, didn't you? You know what I mean? But anyway, that's really the EVO 2K3 story. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's a true story. Like I said, years later, I got a message from Josh even trying to tell me that he forgave me for what I did to him at EVO. The dude is really just so fucking delusional. He doesn't get that these Team Serious guys. You know what's crazy about that too, dude? The Team Serious guys have been caught stealing from other people at tournaments, their video games, all this fucking shit. Kenji fucking scammed people out of money, you know, multiple times. This kind of shit happened, and even after all this stuff happened, he thinks that I was out to get him. You know what I mean? Real delusional hours, whatever that fucking meme is, dude. It's like, you know, some people, they live a lie. They can't, like, I guess it's just like, you know what? I believe something for so many years. I can't, my conscience won't let me accept that it actually wasn't Clayton that did this. I have to believe that it really wasn't him, even though there's no reason to even believe it anymore when all these guys have been caught doing stuff and even fucking you over as well. And, you know, I said, man, that tournament fucked Roger up so much. Roger only went to maybe one more tournament, you know what I mean? And he totally left. I told the story. I actually did finally get in contact with Roger's sister, I should say, actually. Maybe it was the beginning of last year. And, you know, we talked about it. And, man, dude, video games really fucked him up, dude. You know, I guess he ended up becoming actually a conspiracy theorist, she told me. And he really went off the deep end for a while, you know what I mean? But you know what? I mean, that's one of those things. The video game community really fucks some people up, dude. Like, you know, Roger was a good-looking dude, a good-looking kid. And I always feel like, you know, Roger realized, why am I playing video games with these kind of people who just use me for my money? You know what I mean? And it's pretty fucking sad. And, you know, he got into drugs and a lot of other stuff. And me and him did keep contact for a while after he cut people out. But even then, eventually I lost contact with him. And then eventually, you know, I did talk to his sister. And yeah, just a lot of these things from back then, man, it like permanently like fucked with him, seeing how people like treated him and stuff like that. So it's really, you know, you'll see how people will do other people. Yeah, that's really that EVO 2K3 story. 2K3. I don't think there's really anything else to say about it, but I guess some people like hearing that story. What's old is new again, I guess. But the end, I guess.